And welcome to the Drop Zone. Terry Miller, disc golf guy here. Welcome in, everybody. I'm going to take a really wild shot that this is actually working for me, but hope that you guys are here. And as soon as I can get a little bit of a confirmation that some people can see and hear me, then I will keep things rolling. Like I said, it's been a little bit. So, really, really glad to be talking to you guys here tonight. And I got a couple messages coming in. Howdy, howdy. Andy says, sounds good. Jeff says, thanks for this sweet pink buzz with the B foil. Thank you for supporting the event this last weekend. Loud and clear, looks and sounds great. There's only so much I can do about some of that. But first and foremost, let's start with first and foremost. Welcome. I don't believe that it's been almost 3 months since I did a drop zone. These really excited me back in October and November, a little bit in December, and they continue. The idea is very exciting to me. The challenge has been that things have been pretty crazy, and I see this very much rolling into more of a on season. Well, it can be off season too, but definitely getting geared up for the on season when I get to travel around the country and I get to check in on given nights and do whatever I can. But first tonight, before we get really started, we're gonna enjoy a beverage, and I'm gonna share this with you guys, well, virtually in a moment. And I need to get the proper glasses for doing this. So for now, I'm just going with a pint glass. It is, however, a collaboration pint glass from Bevel Beer and what we did for a tournament for the Skyline Classic, which is the event I just ran this last weekend yet again. But this one's from 6 years ago, so the logos are wearing off. And if you're curious, because some of you are, this is a Wolf by Three Sheeps, an Imperial Stout aged in bourbon barrels. And I don't know, a measly 13.9 or 14.8 or something like that. I don't know. Cheers. All right, so what I want to quickly talk about tonight, many of you know, the Champions Cup had a Monday qualifying today. And what I'd like to talk about is the fact that not only did it take place, we'll kind of gloss over that because that's been talked about quite a bit, but also just who got in today and what did scores look like and what does this mean not only for this event but potentially for future events, majors or otherwise. So most of you already know that the Champions Cup, and if I pull up the actual site, it could talk about how you earned exemptions into this by playing in certain events that were qualifying events that then granted you an exemption or an invite to this event. A number of months ago, it was for anyone that wasn't invited directly, they had a threshold in which people could then go and sign up. And a number of our top players, especially on the MPO side, a number of our top players had missed the initial deadline or the initial threshold of times in which they could sign up. I forget where the exact cutoff was, but it was a pretty high threshold, whether it was 10:20 or 10:30, somewhere in that neighborhood. It was a really high threshold. And they had a week or 2 weeks to sign up. A number of players had lapsed, and then the threshold then got reduced to a lesser PDGA rating in which you could still qualify. So you could still sign up, but it just made it a little bit easier and more inclusive of more people to be able to sign up. Again, some of our competitors, whether it was a missed email or some miscommunication or a lapse of just remembering, whatever the case might be, missed out. Again, another tier, another threshold, and then eventually got down. I want to say it got down to like roughly around 1,000 rated players of these people that had met the criteria. And next thing you know, it's completely sold out. It is full. And some competitors have been shut out. Some of the largest names, of course, that we know of that were shut out included world champion James Conrad. Also, this is on the MPO side, of course, James Conrad, Aaron Gossage, who finished runner-up at last year's Worlds, Ezra Aderhold, Kevin Jones, Andrew Marweed. I could probably sort by actual rating, but those are some of the biggest names, and not to disrespect any of the other names, we'll talk more about them. But those are some of the biggest names, some of the most household names. Chandler Fry, Nate Perkins, Andrew Presnell, Double G, Garrett Gerthy, of course, all part of that conversation. So there's been a lot of yelling and screaming and frustration and a ton of different opinions as to how in the world this could happen. And this has happened at USDGC level. This has happened at the Pro Worlds level. This has happened in events where some of our biggest names, for one reason or another, have missed the opportunity to get in and sign up when they were supposed to. People talk about agents doing this, boyfriends, girlfriends, friends, loved ones, parents, president of your fan club, your sponsor. There's been all sorts of conversation pieces throughout the years as to how this could potentially be avoided. And large in part, all of the players of these top level players, they had time. This wasn't a race to the keyboard. And I think that is very noteworthy here. This was not simply a race to a keyboard. We've all been in that scenario where you, especially lately, you want to play an event. It's a popular event. The registration opens at 7 p.m. And then just like that, 400 people at 7 p.m. are trying to get into 200 spots, or 100 people are trying to get into 72 spots, whatever the case might be. This was not one of those scenarios. The tiered registration prevented some of that just first to finger, first to get on the keyboard. And again, there was a time frame of 1 or 2 weeks, another 1 or 2 weeks with this tiered registration. So that is very noteworthy in my opinion. That's exactly the whole concept to tiered registration, in fact, is the fact that someone with a 950 rating, or we'll say 980 rating, not to say that they couldn't potentially win, but someone with a 980 rating doesn't necessarily doesn't have the privilege or the opportunity necessarily at certain events to be able to jump into a registration and beat out a bunch of the other more legitimate contenders, not qualified. I don't know. However you want to break that down. Nobody needs to take offense over this. Anyway, that happened. There's been a lot of talk about it, some very dissenting voices and comments about it. And when it was all said and done, a couple of weeks ago, the PDGA tournament director, Nate Heinold, along with the PDGA, the rest of the staff, had come up with, I'll call it a compromise of sorts, because you can't just let everyone in. And we could make arguments all day long. You name me a person, I could make an argument for them to be in the event. Their player rating, their accomplishments, the worlds they won, the consistency in which they play. I mean, I could make an argument for damn near everyone. Well, my grandma's, secret family's cousin had an uncle who was a really good course designer, and then his son is now an up-and-comer. He should be in. I mean, we could make an argument for everybody, right? So the compromise, for lack of a better term, was that there would be a play-in scenario. I want to say the waiting list got to about 25, maybe 30 deep, 20, 25, 30, whatever it was. I think that, I don't even know if they capped it actually at that many, but it was about 20 to 25 deep on the men's side. And it ended up being, I think, 5 deep on the women's side. So here's what I'm going to show you. We're going to start out on the women's side. They made this compromise, or this proposal or offering, a few weeks ago to say that there would be 4 women that would be able to play today and get qualified. Your odds are pretty good. 4 out of 5 women were on. There was 5 women on the list. 4 of them could get in. So there was the opportunity to play today. And then on the men's side, there ultimately was 8 spots that were made available. Now, how we're getting an extra 12 people into the event in the first place, that's going to be another good argument. And here's what I'm going to say in a mildly jerkish manner. When we have a lightning delay or a storm delay or some kind of delay such as that, those are the most common. If we have a weather delay and then we ended up canceling a round, or not getting to a fourth round, or having some extreme measure and only playing 3 rounds and 9 holes or whatever, or we start pushing darkness on any given day or night, and then we have to have extra holes in the morning and blah, blah, all that stuff. An extra 12 people may sound like nothing, but every single group we add to the course, you're bringing in the potential to have a ripple effect for something else to go wrong. And you could say that all the time. I mean, we could have 60 people in the field and still have a weather delay that jacks up the weekend. I understand that. I'm just saying, when you're talking about long courses, long rounds, and potential weather conditions on any given weekend, as soon as you start pushing the limit as to what a max capacity is on a course, and then you have to be thinking about the worst case scenario of a rain delay or a lightning delay of 30 minutes at minimum, you start getting into this this awkward territory. Goofy's not the word. This territory of, man, now whose weekend is impacted because we have more people. And I just ran an event this weekend. We had 240 people at it. We weren't quite close to sold out this time. But I'll be damned if I'm ever going to have fivesomes intentionally again. I'll be damned if I want to push the limit so hard that inclement weather, even of the slightest, could really impact the tournament. We had a 45-minute rain delay at my event this weekend, or lightning delay. And we had plenty of daylight. Obviously, we're gaining daylight as we go right now, and the event wasn't that full. But you're just playing with fire, figuratively, when you have some of those things. So, for everyone out there, I guess this is my long-winded way of saying, for everyone out there that says, well, just add them. You can just add more people. It's daylight until 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 6:30. That's the problem with just adding more people. Okay? All right. Here is, I see a bunch of you guys chime in, and I appreciate you guys being here. Seriously. Whoa. Thank you. Here is, if I press the right buttons, this might work for me, but you guys know me. Don't hold me to any of this. But here's what I'm going to click on, and hopefully you're still seeing and hearing. This was Ultimate Spoiler. Here's everyone that was here today. And what I want to focus in, I think there's even a new button I can press. Look at that. There's a new button I can press. I want to focus in right here on the 5 women. We're going to start with them. All right? So if I turn this off, I think this will work for me. The 5 women today in the FPO division. Let me see if I can also, click on the right thing here so I can see what's going on. I'm just going to read through them real quickly. We saw Jessica Weiss, Silva Saarinen, yep, Emily Beach, Haley Childs, and Leah Sinigini. Those were the 5 women competing for the 4 spots. When it was all said and done, we saw Jessica Weiss with the hot score. She shot 1 under. As you can see, a very clean scorecard, just 2 birdies, 1 bogey. Silva ended up shooting an even, had 3 birdies, 3 bogeys. Emily Beach shot 1 over, 4 bogeys, 3 birdies. And Haley Childs did not have any birdies out there today, and actually had quite the stroke difference, really just on, look at hole number 10, for instance, which jumps out, where she had a 4-stroke difference between her and Emily on that one specific hole. But Haley Childs shoots a +9, makes it in, and then Leah Sinigini is unfortunately out of the mix at her 12 over. And you can see that even on the last 2 holes, she gave up a stroke, to Haley, who she was closest to on each of the last 2 holes, but still was behind going into those anyway. So it really didn't just come down to the last couple holes in that sense. Jessica Weiss, you got to think she's got to be pretty happy with that overall score, 966 rating, unofficially. Again, very small sample size, propagators, all those other fancy things we don't need to worry about. But 9,000-foot course, 966 was ultimately what she shot out there today. From how they put it together. Now, here's what I can tell you about that, I don't know if this is breaking news or not, but I did hear that Kona Montgomery is not going to be participating. So with Kona Montgomery now withdrawing, that actually will allow Leah Sinigini to get in. They're taking Leah from, obviously she was on the wait list, also then on the play-in today, but Leah will still make it in. I don't know. My understanding was that Kona had made that call a little later in the day. You got to wonder if if Kona would have made that decision last night, and I genuinely do not know this, if she would have notified the staff last night and said, "Hey, I'm going to withdraw," and there was just the 5 women that were there, 4 that were going to get in for sure. That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe I can find that out for the podcast tomorrow night and report back. But all 5 women ultimately are in. So congratulations to all of them who will be competing. You know what? Cheers to them. I'm going to say it. That is arguably the single greatest beverage that I consume or I've ever consumed. All right. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring you guys back to what we saw on the MPO side. When it was all said and done, there were 20 that were there for the play-in today. And again, spoiler alert, if you want to take a look at who we had and what they did, I'm going to be able to click on this and then also give you guys the MPO side and scroll down slightly. We can take a look at the individual scores that were carded out there today. None other than our world champion from 2021, James Conrad, bogey free. I'm scrolling down. I see him and Matt Dollar were bogey free. Tim Barham was also bogey free. Looks like those were the 3 scorecards that were ultimately bogey free on the day. Conrad off to a little bit of a slow start and then put it together. You see holes 9 and 10 back to back. I think that's something to think about maybe for the weekend. Holes 9 and 10 definitely play a little bit softer than the rest of the course. And Aaron Gossage, when I think it was all said and done, I'm guessing he had more birdies by the quick math. Yeah, he absolutely must have had more birdies than anyone else today. 3, 4, 5, 9, 10 birdies out there today. He had the triple bogey on 17 and a single bogey on 18. At that point, he had to be thinking, oh my gosh, did I just give away my chances? Still came in with the 5 under and ultimately was the 3rd best score. But how disappointing, how frustrating must that have been for Aaron Gossage to have the closeout that he did, especially after racking up 10 birdies throughout the round. Did I count that right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, 10 birdies throughout the round. So really impressive. And then another guy that I know is maybe has to switch up some of his plans when it comes to what he'll be doing for work next week or this week is Nate Perkins. So Nate Perkins kind of let us talk about or, gave us a little insight, I think, during the Tournament Central last weekend, which I think should be a whole nother drop zone conversation, but gave us a conversation about him trying to qualify, and here he is qualified as of today. So congratulations to him as well. And in fact, I'm just going to make it easy and read down the list for you guys in case you're somehow not seeing that. James Conrad had the hot score, 7 under, unofficially rated 1041. Chandler Fry, a 6 under. Aaron Gossage, Nate Perkins, both at 5 under, and they took 8 players, and there seemingly was then no need for a playoff because Matt Dollar, Dylan Horse, Tim Barham, and Andrew Presnell all shot 4 under and then take the spots 5 through 8, so to speak, in what they got done today. And then I think one of the biggest conversation pieces on the entire day, obviously, is then the fact that of who didn't get in. And everybody's got their favorites. Everybody wants to talk about what they saw or who should be there or who shouldn't be there and what that really means. But when it was all said and done, Kevin Jones, Double G, Andrew Marweed, Noah Meinsma, Luke Humphreys, all guys that were missing it, Austin Hannum, um, Ezra Aderhold, all missing it today, along with a handful of others. But when you're talking about your typical household names that we see week in and week out, every one of those people we see on the tour every single weekend. And so they're not going to be in. So I guess my question to you guys is, was that the best possible way? You know, when I think about the way that a waiting list happened, and now you may argue with me. That's fine. You could argue with me and say, no, everyone on the waiting list should have gotten in. They should have just made more spots, whatever. Is that the best possible way that that could have been handled in terms of doing a play-in system, which, by the way, was not on the table? That was not necessarily a consideration a matter of just a few weeks ago, up until I want to say about 3 weeks ago. That wasn't necessarily a plan. I don't know how they've shifted times around or what they did to make that happen, but to have the 8 men and the 4 women added, do you feel like that was the best possible way for it to be handled? Do you feel like, hey, just sheer player rating? Do you feel like any points within the Disc Golf Pro Tour, which are separate from this major? I mean, I'd be curious to know as to what you guys think would have been another, I'm going to say, fair way to handle it. A couple people have already said, I wonder if Ezra will still make a doubles battle video. Is Brody playing? Yes, I believe Brody is in, and they could still make a doubles video. I'm guessing they're still going to be. Did they already release a course preview video, even possibly too? Chris says PDGA should have made this more of an event. Not sure how, but took some digging to even figure out who qualified. Okay. I think the PDGA did say that their communication for some of this was not, it could have been improved. I think they're, I don't want to say owning up, but they've at least said that much. Could there have possibly been a little bit more? I mean, Andrew Fish has made the jokes about, hey, I'm going to start offering a service where I'll go sign you up for tournaments that you need to be in so that you don't get cut out. He's made that reference. I think I made that reference many years ago at one point, when we've seen this happen for like world championships and such. But, I think that is part of that's a major part of this conversation is who should be responsible. Should a spot be reserved? I mean, it was technically protected by having this great player rating up until a certain point, and some players just slipped past them. They were busy, preoccupied, weren't on top of it. And I know we could make all sorts of arguments as to if you're a professional, this is your job, this is what you should be doing, or this is what a sponsor should be doing or handling. Again, I've heard every one of those arguments time and time again. Eli says, Johnny V says that there should be a Disc Golf Valley play-in competition. Yeah, that would have been one way to handle it, that's for sure. Eli says, I'm surprised DGN didn't film the play-in with such big names. There may have been some filming. Johnny and I actually had that conversation today briefly. Somebody else asked me over the weekend if it was going to be live. Johnny V pointed out, so where do you draw a line? At the next big tournament that has a live, does it have to be covered? Does it not? What if names aren't quite as notable next time? And I immediately took the response of a cameraman / employee / contractor and worker. They just came off Blue Ridge. They're about to do 4 days out here at the major on a pretty legitimate course, throwing another day of live broadcasting that may or may not have been on the schedule. I don't begrudge them for not doing it. I'm not sure if there was any other coverage of it, but I do not begrudge anyone for not having it. Eli says, do the players need agents who are responsible for signing that up? How does pro golf do it? I mean, I saw a conversation today where people talked about golfers have to essentially get themselves signed up for a lot of events. I think CDX Slayer and Paige won last year. Yes, the CDX Slayer and Paige Pierce won. That is absolutely correct. I personally want the best there, and obviously there's some left out. Truly sad for players and fans. I think that's a very valid argument, Kyle. I think we could all argue about who the best is, right? Um, James Conrad didn't win an event last year. He is a world champion and one of the kindest souls on the planet. I'm not saying he's not one of the best. One way to qualify for this is to win certain events. James Conrad didn't have a win in 2021, or I'm sorry, you obviously won Worlds. 2022, he didn't have a win. Yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough because what immediately happens is all of us have a personal bias that then plays in. Well, so and so should be in. They're my favorite. Are they a top 10? Are they a top 50? Are they a top 25 player? What is that case? What is that scenario in terms of how they should be in? Someone like Kevin Jones, who we haven't seen take down a major. A lot of people, are loudly barking for Kevin Jones to make sure that he's in. And Kevin Jones, doesn't have the accolades that a lot of these other players that are in that did. And that's not to say he shouldn't be there. Of course, I think everybody would love to see him competing there. It's funny because we start splitting some hairs as to who's the best and why they should be there. So we'll see. How long we talking? They let it slip like more than a month of registering. It was at least a few weeks because, again, certain players essentially had an invite. And then even if they missed that invite, like Kevin Jones and James, I think, like there was a bunch of them that exceeded the first threshold of tiered PDGA player rating as well. So they kind of technically, they didn't just miss like their 1 week window or 2 week window. The next level would have still, the next 2 or 3 levels would have still let them all in. They just missed out on every one of those levels. Not to be mean, but there are a lot of no-name players in the field this weekend. But are there? I mean, you're a no-name till you win something big, right? Everybody starts as a no-name. So could you say that? Sure, you could say there's definitely. I opened the whole show saying there's household names, and then there's some names that we don't necessarily see on a lead card every weekend. I'm not picking on Dylan Horse, but we're not seeing him every weekend as a touring card holder on a lead card. Now, look at a Gavin Babcock, who last year, I mean, people knew him, but last year he was very much in the conversation at this event. Clearly, you show up on any given weekend and you can put yourself on a map very quickly when you perform at something like this. Unrelated, but someone says, I don't recall hearing from Elaine King this year. She's still part of the DGN coverage. Elaine is not part of the 2023's coverage. I'm not sure where she stands in terms of when she'll be part of the broadcast team, if and or when. I don't know, but she has no scheduled broadcast for here in 2023. I guess it's relevant because this, I guess, was that event last year. Base it on fan voting. Just kidding. Yeah, okay, I was going to say. Live, learn, and hopefully everybody goes from there. Should there be a rating cap for a major? I think there already is. I want to say it's 975-ish. That's kind of affectionately known as the Lloyd Wema rule. Someone who had come into the sport, found it, and then got into the tournament, got into world championships with like a 909 rating. And then a few years later, within a few years, there was essentially a minimum threshold that was presented to the PDGA. And so on FPO and MPO, I believe there's a minimum threshold in which players, at least at majors and maybe Elite Series events, have to have. So someone with an 875 rating, no matter what they did, couldn't play in certain events. I guess that's an interesting point. What if what if there was a qualifying event and somehow an 875 rated player won the qualifier, that then I guess that would get them into this event. But there is a threshold generally in terms of what you have to have for a minimum rating. And I want to say it's 975 for pros, but I'm sure you guys could find that out and correct me. Good evening, Schwebby. You probably got another win this weekend, I'm thinking. Hope you're well. In the FPO, the older ladies are competing. I don't know what that means. It's an odd situation given the name of the tournament. Champions Cup should be reserved for tour champions. Tour of what? That, I think, could then also be a really solid argument we could have. Tour, PDGA Tour, any PDGA event, certain tours of other countries, Disc Golf Pro Tour, because that would only be a handful of people. Like, I hear what you're saying, but yeah. It'd be nice to include the top 100 players, be automatically included in majors. I mean, in theory, they are, right? They just still need to physically sign up. And I want to make a quick argument for someone that says, hey, let's put the top 100. I'm good with it. Let's use that as an example. Let's put the top 100 players are on the registration list or are getting an invite, have their spot reserved. They still need to sign up. They still need to click and say, yes, I will be there, or here is my money. And why is that important? Because what if they have a wedding that weekend and they know for sure they're not going to be there? Then that should get passed down to the next person, right? So that's why you can't just automatically give them a spot. Maybe they're, look at Sayananda, won a few weeks ago, and never planned on being at this event or even on this part of the country. You can't just automatically, quote unquote, put them in because we don't know for sure. They need to at least say, I commit to being there. So that's my response to that, which I don't think is a tall task to show that you're going to be committed to be at the event. Payouts, do you have details on that? And thanks for chatting with the common man. No, I do not have any details on payout. Nate Heinold of Ledgestone, along with Jamie, his partner in crime, is the assistant TD. This is, held at the PDGA International Disc Golf Center out at Wildwood Park in, gosh, what county? Yeah, it everything should be pretty awesome along those lines in terms of our host, in terms of our venue. I quickly touched on it. I want to say the FPO course was just over 9,000 feet. The MPO course just over 10,000 feet and change, 10,392 feet. And we're going to be excited. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversation. I think there's probably some vlogs or some course previews that will talk about a couple of the hole changes. There's been a few hole changes out there, and so far they've been very well received. One other quick point, and then I'm going to kind of get going here because we don't want this to drag on. This is, along with all PDGA majors, this is also, I believe, our first iteration of the PDGA identity verification. It says the purpose of that is the purpose of the PDGA identity verification program is to confirm that the collected member data the PDGA has on file for each member matches an acceptable form of identification. Talks about implementation, the process. Says PDGA members will provide acceptable identification of the PDGA staff member at a station prior to event check-in. PDGA staff will check to see if the player's name, date of birth, and gender match the information on file with the PDGA member record. If the information matches, the staff will mark it as the member as verified. If the information does not match, the PDGA staff will mark the member as pending and will direct them to the PDGA policy and compliance person. If their identity has been verified, the PDGA member may then proceed to check in for the event. Then it talks about acceptable forms of identification, all standard forms you guys would expect: driver's license, ID cards, passports, military, Coast Guard stuff, Native American tribal document, permanent residence card or alien registration receipt card, and birth certificate. So for whatever that's worth, take it as you will. That is, I believe, to be implemented at all majors this year. Where it will or won't ever be applied in other scenarios, I'm not sure. If this is one step towards greater, wider ranging use, I'm not sure. I don't know any of those details, but that this is the first time that we're going to be seeing that. So if it pops up somewhere or someone's questioning it, you can say that, oh yeah, you heard the disc golf guy rambling about that. All right. I appreciate you guys for anyone hitting the likes or joining us. I know this was super random. I opened by saying it's been a long time since I've done any drop zones. And I think the last one I did was when Simon's news came up. And then I basically took off for Thailand and was gone for a few weeks. And these are going to become much more regular yet again. In fact, I had a whole bunch of subjects and thoughts just this last weekend pop into my mind that I'd love to come on and share with you guys. So we will definitely be doing a few more of these and trying to get things going. All right, guys, gals, everyone else. That's what we saw. Congratulations to our competitors here this weekend. I'm going to read through them yet again on the MPO side, and it was all of the FPOs that played. But James Conrad, Chandler Fry, Aaron Gossage, Nate Perkins, Matt Dollar, Dylan Horse, Tim Barham, Andrew Presnell, all getting in, and just by a stick, as some would say, single stroke, Double G, Max Regetneg, and Ezra Aderhold missed out all by a single stroke. Not sure what the playoff format would have looked like. I think there would have been one. And then Kevin Jones, Andrew Marweed, Noah Meinsma, and Luke Humphreys all just within a stroke or two also not making it. So it's going to be wild. I hope you guys are going to enjoy it. I personally am heading out to Bend this weekend. So to give you a little insight, Charlie Eisenhood will be with Valerie Jenkins. They'll be doing FPO every morning, and then every afternoon it's going to be myself and Nate Doss on the MPO side. So actually, I don't have to be up at 4 in the morning or staying up or getting up, however that would have worked. I'll be able to come in on the MPO side. So Sam says, definitely feel at home in the drop zone. That's great. I appreciate you guys. Tim, good to see you. And guys, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys for joining. I'm going to try and cut it. If I can do this, hit the right button. Like, share, subscribe. I'm so close to 100,000, which never was really a concern or a thought before. But now that I'm within a few thousand, it actually kind of excites me to get there. So I'm going to work on some footage on this other computer. I've got some Chiang Mai footage from Thailand still to release, a final round of bonus footage from there. That's probably going to be the next thing released on my Disc Golf Guy channel. See you guys for Tuesday night Smashbox every Tuesday. Whenever you're hearing this, Tuesday nights 9 o'clock on Smashbox. I'll be there with Johnny V. But like I said, like, share, subscribe. I love you guys. Thanks for joining. And let's see if I can hit this button and actually close things out accurately or correct. See ya.